The alien read his mind, and it broke her. Vexthera of the Varelian mindcast stood like a blade in silk, still and sleek, perfectly composed. Her obsidian uniform shimmered under the conference dome's pale light, and not a single strand of her glacial white hair dared defy its assigned vector. She was bred for this. Calm precision, calculated superiority, and the art of psychic penetration. And yet, she was surrounded by mammals, soft, sweaty, emotionally unstable organics. The Galactic Peace Tribunal's Earth Evaluation Panel was a mix of skeptical old reptiles, humming crustaceans, and plant-based entities who rustled disapprovingly every time someone breathed too loudly. And now they had brought him in. The human, Jake. He walked in with a grin like he just wanted a free coffee, not knowing he was entering a hall of intergalactic judgment. Khakis, a wrinkled polo shirt, mismatched socks, one earbud still in. He waved. Vexthera blinked once, emotionless, but internally a low mental growl. This is the representative of Earth? He appears to be malfunctioning, someone whispered telepathically. He's emitting a strange aura. Is that caffeinated anxiety? No. Worse, I think it's optimism. The human took a seat, wrong seat, had to move, then finally slumped into place with the comfort of a man who didn't realize his species was being evaluated for existential threat level. Vexthera leaned forward slightly. It was time. She projected her voice with regal calm. Jake Thompson of Earth, you have been summoned to participate in a direct mind interface with the tribunal. Do you consent? He blinked. Yeah, sure. Do I have to take my hat off? He was wearing a trucker hat, with a drawing of a cat flying a UFO, saying, Moo. He's doing this on purpose, Vexthera thought. He must be. She nodded once, internally tightening her mindscape. Jake was oblivious, scratching his nose. Behind her, the tribunal observed silently. Some curious, some doubtful, already. The Varelian technique of deep mindstream synchronization had never failed to assess a species' worth. It bypassed lies, filters, politics. It dove straight into truth. She extended one hand. A blue glow traced the air between her fingers. Brace yourself, she whispered, more to herself than him. Jake smiled awkwardly. Am I supposed to feel something? 'Cause I mostly just feel like I'm being judged by a bunch of space squid in fancy bathrobes. The tribunal rippled. Offended. Vexthera ignored them. She closed her eyes, entered. And then, it was noise. Not sound, but mental sound. Images slammed into her. A squirrel on water skis, Jake's third-grade crush who once stabbed him with a pencil, a burning question. If cereal is soup, is a Pop-Tart a ravioli? Her internal mind wall buckled. There was a dog named Carl. Carl had a cape. Carl was running for mayor. Then, guilt over ignoring a text from his mother. A fantasy about being a potato so he could sleep guilt-free. A debate with himself about whether pineapple on pizza was a culinary sin or a mark of free will. Vexthera reeled. Where is the core? Where is his intent? Where is anything coherent? Instead, there were looping fragments of jingles from Earth commercials. Thoughts folding over thoughts. A memory of being 5 and trying to hug a toaster because he thought it was lonely. No structure, no logic, no walls. Just raw, unfiltered, uncensored consciousness. She tried to pull back. He was smiling externally now, humming something called Baby Shark. The tribunal leaned in, waiting, watching. Proceed, Mindcaster, show us their truth. But what truth could be extracted from this human tornado of unrelated thought fragments and emotional debris? And yet, something pulsed beneath, something unexpected, a low throb of earnestness, kindness, pain even. A memory she glimpsed but couldn't yet hold, of a rainy day and a pair of muddy shoes left at the door. A child's drawing stuck to a fridge, a laugh wrapped in tears. Vexthera's breath caught. She hadn't even realized she was breathing. There was no up. There was no down. There was only Jake. Vexthera fought to stabilize her mental stance as waves of cognitive debris slammed into her consciousness. She'd trained for decades in the Varelian mind temples, navigating the twisted psyches of war criminals, sociopaths, even poets. But this wasn't a mind. It was a dumpster fire in a wind tunnel. Establish anchor thought, she ordered herself. She gritted her inner will, reached toward what she hoped was a solid mental foundation, and found a rubber duck named Captain Squeaks leading a rebellion in a kitchen sink. The duck had an eye patch. It barked orders like a naval commander. Jake was 5 in the memory. The enemy? Soap. Vexthera recoiled. Too early. Too strong. Too duck. Reset. She tried again. Searched for emotional resonance, a memory that could serve as a tether, an access point. The tribunal expected structure, purpose, truth. Instead, she tumbled headfirst into a memory of Jake walking into a glass door at a sandwich shop, then confidently blaming quantum physics. He wasn't embarrassed. He explained it to the manager. Then an intense internal debate over whether using both armrests on a public bench made him a monster. Then a song. A terrible, terrible song. Never gonna give you up. No, not that. She flinched. The song repeated, looping in endless chorus. His mind had rickrolled her. She tasted shame. And mayonnaise? The tribunal remained still, watching. They couldn't see what she saw, but they could sense the disturbance in her link. Mindcaster, proceed, came the voice of Grand Arbiter Sulix. Are you encountering resistance? Yes. Yes, she was encountering resistance. The kind of resistance one faces when trying to meditate inside a chaotic garage sale of raw emotions and loose trivia. She pushed deeper. There was a memory now. Something sharper. More defined. A summer day. Jake was 11, standing in a park alone, watching other kids play soccer, his face passive, but inside, an ache. Not sadness exactly. Something closer to longing, paired with a wild overanalysis of the soccer rules. Why does offside even exist? What if the referee is a metaphor for free will? Vexthera paused. Beneath the layers of random, jokey static, there was order, buried deep, like a song under noise, faint, melodic. She followed. A small room. Teen Jake. Headphones on. Drawing. His mother walked in, asked about his day. He said, fine, but his mind screamed, I didn't understand the math. I feel stupid, don't want to disappoint you. He didn't say it, just nodded, smiled. Vexthera inhaled sharply. This human wears masks, constantly. Layer upon layer, humor over fear, chaos over pain. It was disorienting. Alien, but also resonant. She felt something twist in her. Not fear, not confusion, something softer. Then, everything collapsed. She fell mentally down a corridor of thoughts. Grocery lists, Star Wars fan theories, imagined conversations with squirrels about economics. She caught a flash of something called Florida. It radiated fear. Her mental link shimmered. Unstable. One more surge and, did you just flinch? Jake asked aloud. She opened her physical eyes. She hadn't realized they'd closed. Sweat beaded on her forehead. She never sweated. Varelians didn't have sweat glands. She must be hallucinating, or evolving. Neither sounded ideal. Are you okay? Jake asked, his voice genuine. A simple question, but something in the way he asked it landed. He wasn't mocking, he wasn't performing. He'd seen her discomfort and cared. Vexthera blinked, hard. She wasn't trained for that. The mental landscape had evolved. Or devolved. It no longer resembled a mind. It was a mall, not metaphorically. An actual shopping mall. There was an orange Julius stand, a broken escalator, a guy in a hot dog costume doing taxes. Vexthera hovered in the construct, trying to reorient. This must be a dream layer, an unconscious buffer. Except the mall had signs, glowing ones. Welcome to the cognitive complex. Abandon rationality, ye who enter here. A janitor swept by. It was Jake, wearing a trench coat and monocle. He tipped his hat and whispered, watch out for the IKEA maze on level 4. It bites. Then vanished in a cloud of glitter and bees. Vexthera did not scream. Screaming would admit defeat. Instead, she pushed deeper. She arrived at a courtroom. All the jury members were versions of Jake. One had sunglasses and a leather jacket. One was crying into a donut. The case? Jake versus himself. Charge being too weird to function, but somehow still charming. The judge, also Jake, banged a gavel made of spaghetti. Order! We shall now hear from the prosecution. Me. Then, a memory override. Her surroundings flickered, replaced by Jake's college dorm room, pizza boxes, a plastic lightsaber, a whiteboard full of equations titled The Probability of Me Not Failing This Test, spoiler low. And beneath it all, hum. Emotion. Not loud, not direct, but there. A quiet throb of loneliness, covered in jokes and memes, like cheap wallpaper over a cracked wall. Vexthera focused. She found a thread. It was labeled Crippling Existential Dread, Do Not Open. Naturally, she opened it. She plunged into a storm of rapid thoughts. What if free will is an illusion? What happens when dogs realize they can't read? Why do I feel like I'm pretending to be human in front of other humans? It was surprisingly relatable. Wait, what? No. She wasn't supposed to relate. She was Varelian. Telepath, elite, cold, controlled, unshakable. She tried to retreat, but a new door opened. She saw Jake again, older, sitting alone in his apartment, eating cold noodles straight from the pot, a message unread on his phone. From his father. Call me when you can. Jake sighed. Didn't call. It's easier this way, his mind whispered. He won't understand. He never did. Vexthera felt something sharp twist in her chest. Not pain, not pity. Recognition. For the first time, she wondered not just what humans thought, but how they survived thinking like this. Every day. The landscape shifted again. She found herself in a mock war room. Post-it notes on the walls. Anxiety level equals high. Impulse control. Working on it. Goal. Be kind. even if tired. Backup plan, fake confidence with caffeine. Jake stood at a makeshift podium. Team, we've got a day ahead. Tasks include not dying, not crying, and possibly doing laundry. Let's give it our best shot. Applause. From no one. He saluted anyway, then looked straight at her. Not dream Jake, not memory, but the core. His true self. He spoke, not with words but with a feeling. I don't know what I'm doing most of the time, but I try. That has to count for something, right? Vexthera's breath hitched. The tribunal still watched, oblivious to the depth of the stream. They wanted data, measurable sentience, categorized cognition. What she had found was something messier, wilder, human. Vexthera was sinking. Not metaphorically, she was literally falling through a spiral of dream goop, made of Jake's unresolved thoughts and emotional bubble wrap. Each layer burst with something absurd. A memory, a pun, a video game soundtrack. She landed on a couch. Jake's couch. It had a very concerning stain. A note on the coffee table read, "Welcome to the core memory vault. Please remove your shoes. Also, your sense of superiority." She didn't smile. Internally, maybe just a twitch. Focus, she told herself. Anchor, structure, order. She reached out, searching for some semblance of mental command center. Perhaps where humans stored directives or strategic motivations. Surely that existed. Even in this chaos. She pushed past visions of breakfast burritos, minor social embarrassments from middle school, and an inexplicable fixation on raccoons. Then, there it was. A door. Solid, heavy. Marked, private? Seriously? Don't. So of course she opened it. Inside, everything changed. Gone were the cartoons and mental memes. She stepped into a small, dim kitchen. Too real. Rain tapped against the window. The smell of overcooked pasta lingered. A young Jake sat at the table, shoulders tense. A woman stood by the sink, his mother, tired, concerned. She was talking, but the words were muffled. Jake nodded, smiled, laughed even. But his inner voice told a different story. I don't want her to worry. If I pretend I'm fine, she'll be okay. I can carry this. Vexthera felt disoriented. She wasn't reading anymore. She was experiencing. A surge of emotion. Protectiveness rose in her. Alien, untrained. Pull back. Pull back now. But she didn't. The scene changed again. Jake, older now, sitting outside a hospital room, alone, knees bouncing, hands clenched. Another internal monologue. Please let her be okay. Please, I'll do anything. Be strong. Don't cry here. Cry later when no one sees. Vexthera flinched. Not from the content, but from how deeply it hurt to feel it. This was not the clinical data she was assigned to extract. This was vulnerability, and she hated it, and she hated it, and she didn't understand that contradiction. Then, like a glitch in the system, Jake's voice broke through, not in memory, not in hallucination, but from his conscious mind now aware of her. Are you okay in there? She stumbled. He knows? No, not quite, but somehow he sensed her presence, and he cared. Stop. Stop this. This is contamination. This is the reason we don't link with species like this. This is why we observe from afar, why we never get close. She tried to retreat. The link didn't sever. Panic. Not full, but close. She gritted her teeth, summoned a mental firewall, tried to reassert the Varelian mind protocol. 1. Maintain control. 2. Extract only what is necessary. 3. Detach from emotional influence. She succeeded in exactly none of these. A final image crashed into her. Jake, 7 years old, standing alone at school pickup. Rain again, every other child gone home. He waited. Waited. His thoughts? It's okay. She's just late, not gone, not again. That did it. The wall cracked. Her own mind, tightly trained and shielded for years, began to warp. This is not professional. This is not science. This is something else. And that something felt disturbingly human. A tremor rippled through the chamber. Grand Arbiter Solik shifted uncomfortably in his lev seat, his tendrils curling tighter than regulation decorum allowed. His normally translucent eyelid fluttered. Not from external stimuli, but from something internal. Did I just remember my larval birthday party? With the jelly fountain? Why now? Across the dais, Subjudge Terrell blinked twice and whispered to no one, I miss my third clutch. Silence. Then in unison, all 12 telepathic tribunal members stared at each other. Oh no, it's leaking. Inside Jake's mind, Vexthera stumbled backward, metaphorically backward, of course. There were no real directions in psychic space. But if there were, she was flailing in every one of them. Contain, control, reverse the flow, reset, reset, reset. Her mental firewall sparked. Protocol sequences danced across her inner vision. Nothing held. The link wasn't just open, it was flowing both ways. Jake blinked. He said, waving a hand in front of her face. Your eyes just did a weird glow flicker thing. Is that normal, or should I be, bracing for laser vomit? Vexthera didn't answer. Her voice had short-circuited. Instead, she felt Everything. Jake's fleeting shame over skipping a phone call, his joy at finding a perfect fry at the bottom of a bag, his guilt over yelling at his high school dog, his secret belief that every spider he squashes reincarnates to take revenge, and worse, his hope. That damn persistent, irrational hope that clung to him like duct tape on a collapsing spaceship. Outside, the tribunal was breaking down. One counselor started softly humming an Earth song, all by myself. Another tried to arrest the chair they were sitting in, declaring it was hiding feelings. Turl was curled in the corner, gently stroking his datapad and whispering, "Why didn't I tell Perzek how I felt at the consulate ball?" Aid drones hovered in confusion. Grand Arbiter Solix stood abruptly, his voice wavered. "Cease the connection. Mindcaster Vexthera withdraw." Vexthera couldn't, not yet. Her hands clenched at her sides. Her mental self stood at the edge of something huge. This isn't data anymore, this is transformation. In Jake's mind, something opened. Not a memory, not even an emotion. A metaphor, a hallway. Each door marked with a phrase, what I lost, what I never said, what I still believe, and one more, what I've hidden, even from me. Vexthera hesitated, then entered. She stood on a quiet hill overlooking a field of stars. Jake was there, just a silhouette, watching the horizon. He spoke softly, "I don't know if I'm good, but I want to be. Does that count? Is trying enough? If I fall apart, will someone help me rebuild?" The questions weren't aimed at her. They were self-reflections, but they hit. Vexthera trembled. She, the mind reader, the unshakable, trembled. Why is this species so raw? So open, even when it hurts? Why do they feel everything at once and still keep going? And why do I not want to leave? Back in the tribunal chamber, the distortion peaked. Solix collapsed into his chair, eyes wide. "I just remembered what chocolate tastes like," he croaked. Another counselor began drawing hearts in mid-air with their plasma stylus. One shouted, "I wish I'd hugged my fourth clutch." Another, "My battle armor was just emotional suppression in metal form." Order collapsed, and still, Jake stood there, in his mind, calm. He looked toward her, not startled, not afraid, but gentle. "You okay?" he asked. Not because she needed to answer, but because it mattered. And for the first time since she joined the Mindcaster Order, Vexthera whispered something back without a filter, without protocol, without fear. "I don't know." She didn't know what she felt. She just knew she didn't want to stop. Somewhere between diplomatic chaos and full-blown space opera, the Varelian High Tribunal officially lost its collective mind. One of the archivists had mistaken a mug of ceremonial sap for chamomile tea and was now quoting Earth poetry at a tactical drone. The drone, lacking sarcasm protocols, politely applauded after every line. Counselor Jern hissed, "This is unacceptable. Containment breach of cognitive protocols is a level 9 infraction." Turl replied by blowing bubbles into his nutrient bowl. And in the center of it all, the neural projection of Jake's subconscious stood, arms crossed, looking remarkably nonplussed for someone whose raw emotional essence had just hijacked an alien government. Jake blinked. "Sue, is this the part where you zap me, or like eat me?" "No one is getting eaten," Vexthera muttered, still dazed. "Probably." The tribunal roared with overlapping mental frequencies. "She's compromised. Terminate the session. The human must be quarantined. Their minds are viral. I just want a hug and maybe a sandwich." One voice cut through the static. Grand Arbiter Solix rose, his form trembling, not from fear but from something far worse in Varelian culture. Emotional awareness. "I felt empathy," he whispered, as if confessing war crimes. A collective gasp. Meanwhile, Vexthera was experiencing what human texts described as a full-on existential panic with bonus guilt sprinkles. She'd never broken protocol before. She'd never felt attachment. She'd never cared about a subject. She didn't know what to do with the sensation. It was like hugging a cactus, comforting and painful at once. But she did know one thing. They were going to destroy Jake, or isolate him, or dissect him, or worst of all, erase the memory of him from her neural net. That possibility sent a jolt through her stronger than any disciplinary fear. Jake, blissfully unaware, was now trying to teach a drone how to high-five. In the Hall of Consensus, a vote was called. The options: 1. Terminate subject link and mind-wipe the Mindcaster. 2. Quarantine both entities for study. 3. Let it ride and see what happens, suggested by a counselor who had clearly snapped and was now wearing ceremonial robes as a toga. Votes flashed in spectral glyphs. The result? Tied. 6 for elimination, 6 for containment. The deciding vote fell to Vexthera. "Excuse me," she asked, as if someone had just handed her a live grenade and a puppy and asked her to juggle both. You initiated the link, Solix said. You feel it. Decide. She turned to Jake. He was now doing shadow puppets for a confused alien orb. This one's a rabbit, he said. Or maybe an existential crisis. It's abstract. He looked up and caught her eyes. No fear. No anger. Just that ridiculous, infuriating human openness. Whatever you choose, I'll trust you, he said. Even if it gets weird. Especially if it gets weird. Vexthera closed her eyes. Her thoughts blurred. Logic warring with emotion, training clashing with instinct. If I save him, I do my career. Maybe my people's faith in our order. If I betray him, I lose something I don't even fully understand, but feel. What is the price of one human life? Why does that question feel important? She opened her eyes, lifted her chin, and did the most shocking thing the council had ever seen. She smiled. Option 4, she declared. I choose to protect the subject. And myself. Gasps. One drone fainted. You can't do that, Solix said. I just did. Pandemonium erupted. Vexthera severed the link, gently this time. Jake stumbled but remained standing. You okay? He asked. She nodded. No, but maybe that's okay. The council froze, unsure what to do with a mindcaster who had just committed career heresy and looked peaceful about it. And Jake? Jake just grinned. Cool. Want to get noodles? Vexthera was not arrested. Not immediately, at least. There were too many conflicting procedures, overlapping clauses, and at least 3 legal precedents involving emotional contamination and rogue empathy events. The council needed time, so they gave her a box, a literal one. Containment habitat, they called it. A glorified storage room with ambient lighting and 2 chairs, which apparently counted as luxury in Varelian detention. Jake was also there. He'd named the chairs. This is Stabby, he said, patting the first. And this one's Mr. Crumplebutt. Vexthera blinked. Why are you like this? Jake shrugged. You get used to me, like radiation or jazz. They waited. For judgment. For a decision. For some bureaucratic protocol to roll downhill and crush them both. Jake didn't seem worried. He was trying to turn one of the wall panels into a whiteboard using toothpaste. Vexthera had stopped asking, but inside, she was unraveling. I've severed my order. Defied the tribunal. Risked everything. And for what? A voice answered. Not Jake's. Her own. Soft, unfamiliar. For someone who didn't look away. Back in the council chambers, chaos bloomed like mold in a damp corner of reason. Half the members now wore earth clothing badly. One had discovered cowboy hats. Another was building something called a vibe corner. Grand Arbiter Solix tried to reassert control. This is heresy, he bellowed, wearing sunglasses and holding a stress ball. This is evolution, Trill murmured, sipping bubble tea. Maybe we've been wrong. Wrong? Solix choked. Yes, Trill said. About humans, about emotion, about ourselves. Perhaps logic without compassion is just sterilized ignorance. The room fell silent. Back in the box, Vexthera asked a dangerous question. Jake, did you ever wonder why your mind resisted us? Why it's infectious? Jake paused mid-toothpaste swipe. Oh. That. He rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, about that. Might be time I told you something. Vexthera leaned forward. See, I, may not be just some rando human. What are you talking about? He exhaled. I was born during a solar flare event, registered off-the-chart neuroresonance as a kid. I got recruited into a Terran experimental empathy program when I was 13. What? Basically, my brain was trained to weaponize feelings. I was too good at connecting, too dangerous. She stared. I flunked out, he added. Got too emotional. Hugged a general. They said I wasn't stable. Vexthera buried her face in her hands. So let me get this straight, she groaned. You're a failed empath superweapon with an addiction to breakfast burritos, and you just destabilized an intergalactic tribunal with raw sincerity? Jake grinned. Sounds cooler when you say it. She wanted to scream. Instead, she laughed. The tribunal reconvened. Final decision? Vexthera was to be reassigned as a liaison between humans and Varelians. An ambassador of emotion. Jake was part of the deal. The council had ruled, we cannot contain the contagion of the human mind. We can only learn to navigate it. Tribunal added, also I want to try hugging, just once. On their first official mission together, Jake wore a suit, Vexthera wore armor. Both looked uncomfortable. Any advice? She asked before they entered the Hall of Intergalactic Cooperation. Jake nodded. Yeah, be weird, be honest, and maybe bring snacks. She smirked. You're the worst diplomat in history. True. But I'm your worst diplomat. She paused, then said softly, let's make them feel something. As the doors opened, Vexthera took a breath and stepped forward. Not as a weapon, not as a mindcaster, but as something new, something terrifying, human adjacent. And behind her, Jake followed, probably humming a theme song he made up on the spot. In a universe ruled by logic, one chaotic human mind sparked an emotional revolution. What began as an experiment became something no alien expected: connection. If you enjoy mind-bending, heart-hitting sci-fi, Sci-Fi Sky has more stories waiting for you.